walking along the water. And he and his advisor saw this man in the middle of the lake. He was a fisherman, an old fisherman. Had a long beard and a lungi and head wrap. And the fisherman would take his net and he threw it out in the water. And he'd pull in the net and they threw out the fish. Then he'd roll up his net and throw it out in the water. And he'd pull in the net and throw out the fish. And the chief said to his advisor, "What is this man doing? He's not fishing. I want to talk to that man." So the advisor said, "Hey you, fisherman, come here. The chief would like to speak." So the old man rolled up his net, put it in the boat, and he rowed his boat to the shore. And he got out of the boat, he said, "Your Majesty, I'm at your command." The chief said, "What are you doing?" He said, "You're not fishing. You're catching the fish and you're throwing them back and you're throwing out your net. What are you doing?" The fisherman said, "Oh, chief, I have a story to tell if you have ears to hear." He said, "A story? Oh, I like a good story." The chief sat, the advisor sat, and the old man sat. Then he began. He said, "Chief, when I was young, I was vibrant." He said, "I would go out in the middle of this lake, and I would throw out my net, pull in my fish. I'd take them out into the market, and I'd sell those fish. I'd have so much money, I'd go home, I'd share it with my mother. My mother would cook, and then I had so much money that I would go out, and I would sit there and watch the men play backgammon and drink hot tea." He said, I had a great life. But whenever I went home, my mother would always say, "Why don't you get married? I want some grandchildren. Find you a wife." The old man said to the chief, "But chief, I love my life. I just love just being by myself." But then one day I was out and I threw out my net, and I thought I had the biggest haul I had ever thought. And I was pulling and pulling and pulling, and when I got the net up, there was a big box. And attached to the box was a golden key. And attached to that latch was a golden lock. And I took the lock, I took the key, put it in the lock, opened the box, and out stood this beautiful woman. Oh, the old man said to the king, I had never seen such beauty. And I said, "Hello." She said, "Hello." I said, "Who are you?" She said, I'm your wife. You have me." So I lifted her out of the box, I closed the box, I put the key back onto the box, and I rowed to the shore. This shore. And then I took my wife in one hand and the box in the other, and I went to my home. And when I got to my home, my mother opened the door. She said, "Is this her? Is this your wife? Is this the woman that will have my grandchildren?" And then I said, "Well, mother, yes." She called all of the people in the village, and we had a great feast. And then we lived happily together. We lived so happy, the old man said to the king. We lived so happy, and we were so good that I thought that being a fisherman was not good enough for my wife. So I had to learn a new trade, and I became a goldsmith. I would make fine jewelry for people, for the known, for the unknown, for the rich, for the famous. They would come to me, and I would make this beautiful jewelry. I'd make each piece special to that person. And I had me a shop. And one day I was working in my shop, and I was working on a very difficult piece. Then the old man said to the king, then I smelled an aroma that I had never smelled before. And then that aroma came up under the door, and a light shone up under the door. And then the old man said to the king, and then the door opened, and there were 3 maidens, and those 3 maidens had veils. And in one step, they stepped into my room, and they said, "Goldsmith, are you happy?" I didn't know what to say, the old man said to the king. "Well, who are these women? Why are they asking me if I'm happy?" He said, "Well, yes, I'm happy. I'm happy." And then the 3 maidens said, "Well, if you're happy." And they turned around, and in one step, the 3 of them stepped out and closed the door. The old man said to the king, I didn't know who these women were. And I couldn't get back to working on my jewelry because I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I went home. And when I got home, I walked into the door, still pondering that question. And then my mother was cooking, and my wife was singing songs, and we ate, and then we went to bed. Then the old man said to the king, as I laid there beside my wife, I was wondering, why are they asking me if I'm happy? Then the next day, the old man said to the king, I went to my shop, and as I thought they would, they surely did arrive. The scent came into the room, and the smoke came up from under the door, and the door opened, and the three maidens stepped in, and they said, Goldsmith, are you happy? This time I said, well, yes, I'm happy. Why are you asking me if I'm happy? They said, well, if you're happy. And they turned around, and in one step they left. But I was getting pretty pissed off by now, the old man said to the king, because these women keep coming to my shop, asking me if I'm happy. Yes, I'm happy. Why are they asking me if I'm happy? And then I went to my home, and there my wife and my mother were cooking and happy. I said, well, yes, I'm happy. Why are these women asking me if I'm happy? That night, the old man said to the king, when I went to bed, I couldn't sleep, because I couldn't get that question out of my mind. Am I happy? And so the next day, when I got to my shop, the old man said to the king, I didn't even start working on my piece. I sat there, waiting for these three maidens to appear, and appear they did. The door opened. They walked in and said, Goldsmith, are you happy? He said, oh, no, I'm not happy. Why do you keep asking me if I'm happy? If I can't answer you all the time, then no, I'm not happy. Show me what happiness is. Then the old man said to the king, the three maidens said, well, follow us, and we will show you happiness. And they turned around, and they stepped out of the door, and I followed them. And I walked down streets that I knew until I reached streets that I had never seen before. And then the old man said to the king, these three maidens walked me up into their door, and there was a door fashioned in the veil, a door knocker fashioned in the veil of a veiled woman. And they knocked on it, and it opened, and there was light, nothing but light. And there was a huge table filled with food. And then the old man said to the king, the three women said, we will show you happiness. And then one started feeding me, one started bathing me, one started giving me succulent things to drink. Then one started playing the music, and another one danced. And I had never felt that way, the old man said to the king. And then the three maidens stood in front of me, and then they said, well, we will show you happiness. And they dropped their veils. The old man said to the king, I thought my wife was beautiful, but these three maidens were all three equally as beautiful. Oh, I'd never seen such beauty, the old man said to the king. And they said, you can only choose one. Which? He didn't know which one to choose, the old man said to the king, because they all were three equally beautiful, and then one slightly put their foot forward, as if to say, choose me. You. He said, you. I will choose you. Then the old man said to the king, I'm sorry. And then the old man said to the king, the maiden told me, I will be your wife, but you have to take your wife, put her back in the box, and throw her back into the lake. The old man said to the king, I didn't have to think twice. I didn't have to think twice. I ran outside that door, I closed it, and I ran through the streets that I didn't know until I got to the streets that I knew, and I ran up the stairs, and I saw my mother. I said, Mother, where's my wife? She said, she's upstairs. She's upstairs. I ran up the stairs, and I said, wife, what are you doing? It doesn't matter. Then you come with me. She said, why? Where are we going? Where are we going? He said, ask me no questions. You just follow me. And then the old man said to the king, I took my wife by one hand, and I took the box. And I took the box with me that she came in. And I went pump, pump, pump down the stairs. And I went down the roads that I know until I came to this lake. And I got into my boat, and I put her and the box into the boat. And I rowed to the middle of that lake, the old man said to the king. This lake right here. And I told my wife, get into the box. She said, no. Why? Why? Because we don't have children? We don't have children. Just be patient. He said, no, get into the box. Then the old man said to the king, she resigned to her fate. She got into the box. And I took the lock and I clicked it. And I put the key into the lock and locked the box. And then I attached that golden key to the golden chain. And I pushed it out into the lake. And then the old man said to the king, and then I rolled my boat back. And I said, I have to go and get my new wife. And as I walked down the streets that I know, looking for the house, couldn't find it. He said, I walked and walked and walked, and I even asked people, have you seen the road? Have you seen the house? But they had never seen such a house. So I went to the only place that I knew. I went back home, and my mother said, where is she? What did you do with your wife? And then the old man said to the king, I told my mother everything. I told her everything. And my mother said, you're a fool. You're a fool. But you know, it's not too late. It's not too late. Go back into the water. Go get my wife. Go get your wife so I can have grandchildren. It's not too late. Go get your wife. And then the old man said to the king, I went back to this lake. I got into that boat. I rowed out to the middle. And I took my net and I threw it out in the water. And I pulled it in. But I only caught fish. So I threw out the fish and I threw out my net and I pulled it in. And I only found fish. I was a young man then, the old man said to the king. Now my beard is long. My memory is fading. But I'm still fishing for my wife. Now you have heard my tale, the old man said to the king. And he stood up and he bowed to the king. And he said, you will have to excuse me. I have to go find my wife. I might find her today. So the old man went and got back into his boat. He rowed out into the middle of the lake. And he took out his net and he threw it out into the water. And he pulled in his net and he threw out the fish. And he threw out his net and he pulled in the fish. And he threw out the fish. And he threw out his net. And he threw out his net. And that is the story of the old fisherman. Hey y'all.